Hello again, my friends, it's Glamador, and since I stopped doing this little video series a year ago, I have been absolutely inundated with questions about how to make avatar swapping work and stay permanent in Nexon's Lite client for the North American servers. And people seem to have problems with naked characters and characters swapping back to their default avatars or the way the avatars were before they swapped them when they enter and leave dungeons. And the problem that people are having is rooted in pretty much just one thing, which is to say they're most likely not using foreign NPKs and foreign .images to replace their avatars with. Now, I've tried to hit on this and answer in the comments, but I figure it's about time I do a video and just point all future questions to this and say this is how it's done. Now, I will go over a couple of things that may have been gone over in my previous chapters of my tutorial series before, but this is the definitive point your friends here video. Now, looking here, if I click Animation Display Frame, this is a North American Dungeon Fighter Online sprite package, NPK. And you'll notice that it loops for a short while and then goes back to what it was doing. And the reason for this is that this NPK does not actually contain all of the files. You'll notice all the files past a certain point are blank. That's because of the way the Nexon Lite client works. And that is to say that the files, the .ping files, are not stored client-side. They're stored server-side, which means every time the game loads this file, this NPK, this .image, guncoat 0005A, it sends a message to the Nexon servers, or pings it, and it sends back the appropriate avatar file. Now, I don't know why they did this. I do not understand the purpose of it. It doesn't really cut down on any CPU cycles or anything like that. I imagine it might have been to stop people from hacking, and if the Korean files didn't exist, it would be a very effective way of preventing hacking, because you can't swap avatar files between images in the Lite client. In order to make it work and stay permanent, you have to use avatar files from a foreign NPK. Now, this here is a Korean NPK from about a year and a half ago. You'll notice if I scroll all the way down to the bottom here, we currently have 9,800 .images, and here we only have 9,200. That's as high as it goes. That's because this is a very old NPK. Now, if you get a current NPK, you should be able to find all the current avatars. I believe that our NPKs are up to date with Korea, China, and Japan at the moment. But the reason that we can use foreign image files and we can't use the North American ones is because, if I click Animation Display Frame, this file, as you'll notice, has all of the animations stored client-side, not server-side. All the ping files are there for the gunner. So what you want to do is find the avatar file you want to swap, right-click, save as file, save it anywhere you like, doesn't matter. Then go back over here to your North American one and replace the file with anything you like, preferably the one that you just saved, since that was the point. But once you've done that, your job is not quite done. Now, in Chapter 5, I covered all the things you have to do with merging files and things, and I realize that for most of you, the stock account that I gave everyone to use with the EXRPG forums is now no longer functioning. You'll have to make your own somehow or find a friend that speaks Korean. I'm sorry I can't help with that. But once you have that, you can do all the stuff that I mentioned before with merging and things, but that's not the point of this video. Once you've got the foreign image file over here, you're still not quite done yet. What you want to do is go into your C, Nexon, DFO, Image Packs 3, not 2, 3, and you'll find some resource files. Now, I only have one because I haven't been playing, but depending on how many characters you have, how many avatars they have equipped, and how many dungeons you've run, you may have more or fewer resource files. You'll probably never have 0 unless you've previously deleted them. So expect to have at least one. But no matter how many you have, more or less, you are going to want to just select all of them and delete the buggers. Delete them. The reason for that is that the North American NPK files, specifically the North American .image files in the NPK, have an invisible marker inside of them which prevents you from simply swapping between these avatar files. They have a the best I can figure, the way it works is it pings it with the name of the file, and if you swap the files, the name stays the same. So when it pings it, it sends back the file under that image name to where is your avatar, so that's why it doesn't work. But that's all speculation on my part. The point is that there's an invisible marker in the .image file which tells the Nexon servers to send a certain avatar. So even if you swap over here with a foreign NPK and don't delete the resource file, this is a record of all the pings that this has made previously. Now, that means that even if you replace the file, if the resource file stays in place, it will continue to ping the server, and that's why people get the naked and swapping back errors that I talked about earlier. Now, it's also important to note that you cannot just save all of the images in a file from Korea and then think that you can fix all that by right-click, replace all, modify all resources. You can't do that because the invisible marker is in the .image file, not the .ping files, not the .npk, but the .image. So you have to replace the entire .image file. This thing right here. Not these, not that, this. And that's actually all there is to it. As long as you do that, you should have no problem. But while I have you here, I'm going to discuss another question that I've had a lot, which is how to make blank avatar files if you're doing a full character sprite replacement like my Zero Slayer or Ken Fighter. And there are two methods for doing that. The first one is the most complete and also most tedious. Now, in any case, because of what I've just explained with the .image files and the invisible markers, if you just try and perform this method on these files, it will not work. So what you want to do is find a foreign NPK like we have over here and perform this method and then replace the entire .npk, okay? Remember that, replace the entire NPK or every single individual .image file, but that is just stupid. Don't do that. Don't do that. But what you want to do is right-click, right-click, hide all map, yes. Click, right-click, hide all map, yes. Click, right-click, hide all map, yes, and so on and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, this is a horribly tedious thing to have to do for every single image file in every single NPK for all of the avatars that you want to make a blank of. So don't do it by hand. Whatever you do, please don't do it by hand unless you're OCD or autistic or some other high propensity disorder for boredom. Instead, you use a macro program. Use something that will allow you to write a script which will mimic mouse movements, and go ahead and have it do it for you, that program. If you know how to code or type up a little script at all, you can make one pretty easily that'll go through those motions for every file you want. And you can just walk away from your computer for a few minutes, more like a few hours since there are a lot of files, and let it do its thing. The one thing that you should keep in mind is that there is a pretty hard limit on how quickly you can actually do the clicks, because it takes a second for the thing to load each image file. As you can see, there's a slight flash whenever I click on each of these. That, even if you have a really fast computer, that doesn't ever go away. So you need to hard code in a delay between your clicks if you're making the macro. Don't just make it do it all instantly and try and do it faster. That'll just get you screw-ups, and you'll have to go back through the whole thing and with a fine-tooth comb and fix any mistakes. And you don't want to have to do that. That's even worse than the other thing. So step 1, find foreign NPK. Step 2, create macro to click, right-click, hide all map, yes. Click, right-click, hide all map, yes. All right? That's the method. Now, after you've done that, you're going to be left with a file size that is much smaller than it was before. Now, here's the next bit. You have to go over to the North American NPKs. This one, 166.222.19. You see that file size? You need to then edit, fill to the specified size, 166.222.19, this. All right? because you cannot use, as far as I'm aware anyways, the renaming method for replacing avatar files. I'm like 99% certain that the renaming method doesn't work for avatar files because of the thing I mentioned before, which is the invisible markers. It will ping them with invisible markers whether you overwrite the file using the renaming method or not. So you have to replace the entire file, just like old school, before the renaming method existed, and fill it to the appropriate file size for the North American servers, which is this over here, as of the time of making this video. Now, that's the first method, and you have to do that for each of them. Hide them all with your macro program, fill it to the appropriate size for North America, replace file, not rename. Now, that's method 1. Method 2 is to go into your Image Packs 2 folder and just make a new folder somewhere and copy some other tiny NPK file. This one's only 65 kilobytes, so copy. And then make a whole bunch more copies of that and rename it to match the NPK that you want to replace, which will be, well, several in all likelihood. No one ever makes a blank avatar file of just one thing. It doesn't do anything. Anyways, once you've renamed it, then you want to go ahead and open it up in your extractor. Ignore the error messages. I have an outdated version of the extractor. Now, you'll notice that this does not have anything that looks even close to resembling items by this name. And more importantly, it doesn't have any invisible markers telling you to ping the Nexon servers. It has nothing to do with avatar files. That's the important thing. Pick a file that has nothing to do with avatars. And what you want to do is you want to go in here and fill to the specified size, again, for the North American servers. 166.222.19. Check. And you'll notice that over here, it will update in a quick second here. There it goes. All right. Now you see that is the correct file size for the North American servers. So now we have effectively created a fake avatar file which has none of these .images in it. So it will never ping it, it will never recognize, and you're done. Except for one thing. If you do this, it will actually not recognize that there is any file there at all, and it will send a missing file error, which will put that little red X up in the upper left corner of the screen above the avatar, assuming you're facing right. If you're facing left, it's going to be on the right side. And to get rid of that, you just have to do like I showed you before in my video series, is go to sprite interface.npk, go into base.image, and delete the red X, which I believe is 90, 91, somewhere in that range. It's been a while. I can't quite remember. But either way, no matter which method you use for creating blanks, you still have to go back into the Image Packs 3 folder and delete the resource files, because if those resource files are still there, then it will continue to ping the servers, and that's what you do not want. Okay, I hope that answered all of the lingering questions that people had for me about swapping avatars and why it's not working and how to make blanks. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask in the comments, but if you ask something that I've already answered, I'm just going to point you back to the video, so keep that in mind. Have a good time modding, everyone.